Church is what we're going to talk about
today. That's right.
That's what we're going to talk about in church today.
Yeah.
We're going to take you to church, like Hosier once said, but like in a better way, because it sounds dirty.
Really?
A little bit, yeah.
Huh.
Everybody, hello. Welcome to Cultural Disruption. It's Blake and Jared here with Rafia.
Hi, guys.
We're going to talk to you about some kind of an interesting topic today. We're going to talk about religion, right? And here's the issue. Now, we're not saying in an interview you come out and say, Jared, it's nice to have you come in today. What religion are you?
Oh, offended.
Yes. See, I am the...
Is that what people say?
I am of the offended belief, right? So, we want to talk about religion in the workplace. And we actually, several vlogs ago, we discussed... Actually, one of our first ones, we discussed beholding people. And we brought up how Christ beholds people, and we need to do the same in effect. So
this is like an elaboration.
It's
like
an elaboration,
We're going into more detail about that vlog.
Let's focus a little bit more on that side of things.
Yeah.
So there's a man by the name, and I have to bad memory on things.
Matt
Townsend wrote or gave a presentation once that he called Spiritual Beings and the Human Experience.
Yes.
Right. And so with that... kind of going back to that behold topic, that behold idea, we have to learn how to see our employees as spiritual beings. And we'll elaborate on that a little bit more, but I know Jared has a story that he wants to share.
So
it is a good story. I like this story.
Okay, so here's the deal. When I was in elementary school, I forget what grade. I want to say it was like maybe fourth grade. Could have been fifth.
Probably. It had to
Fourth
be,
or fifth.
where kids can be mean.
So kids were mean. So I'm tall, and like in elementary, I was tall as well. And so I think I got picked to do this thing mainly because I was tall.
Were you lerpy?
I was definitely lerpy. I was a lerp for sure. So anyway, our class was doing this presentation, and it is a school assembly in front of everyone. And we needed somebody to act as the person who would say no to drugs.
What perfect example.
And they picked the tall kid, the lerpy tall kid.
You look like a nerd. Come up here.
Hey, Jared.
Hey, dweeb.
I mean,
Jared, come on up on stage.
So, like, I went up and I represented saying no to drugs. And they didn't want to use a name of somebody who would be at the school. And so they decided to use the name GERD.
Like cheese curd, but with a G.
Yeah, G-U-R-D.
GERD.
Now, the reason they selected that is because it's drug spelled backwards, right? And it's like the anti to drug is GERD, and nobody had that name. So I felt like $1 million.
Jared's mama was proud.
She filmed it and was absolutely present. And I loved being Gerd the Nerd until it became Gerd the Nerd. Because as soon as we finished the assembly, we went out to recess and everybody said, "Hey, Gerd the Nerd." And that nickname stuck with me for a long time. Mm-hmm. And so like I felt like $1 million, and then I immediately felt like a nerd, as in Gerd the Nerd. And I think it kind of goes to this concept of like, I allowed what people said about me to determine like the value that I kind of felt. And I think that's true with like work as well. We as employees view what people tell us about our employment, and we take a lot of value on who we are as a person as who we are an employee.
Yeah. Performance evaluations label who you are, right?
Oh, totally.
When I go into a performance evaluation, I'm rated on this scale or whatever, however you do it. Scale of 1 to 10, you're a 3. That's how I view myself.
Totally.
I am labeled as a 3. So there's this person, and you'll have to forgive me because I don't know the gender. I could. It was
a guy.
As a guy.
Yeah.
Okay. Not that we're gender.
I can't say his name though.
Okay. We're gonna give it a whirl. Telehard de Chardin.
I think that sounds fantastic.
Sounds legit, doesn't it?
It sounds too legit.
And he had this quote. He says, "We are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience." That's kind of deep, right? And again, it comes back to that beholding concept. When we look at ourselves more as spiritual beings, if I were to ask you on a spiritual aspect, who are you?
Son of God.
Child of God, right? Son of God. And so if I look at myself more in that aspect, I might start to see myself differently. But you as the employer or the manager, if you start to look at your teams in that same kind of respect, in that same regard as children of God, now it does not matter what religion you are, right? You can still do this with respect to the spiritual aspect of human beings. But if we have the ability to look at people more in a spiritual aspect, then I think we can love them better. We can help them progress and grow better as well.
Okay, so let's talk about this for work for a little bit. At work, we are viewed as what we accomplish, and we're measured by our results. We're not measured on who we are as an individual. And like, even if we talk about traditional diversity is seen as what, Blake? Traditional
Well, you could
diversity.
be diversity is like religion and
Yeah.
color and race, ethnic origins, things
so
like that.
my employer might say, well, Jared's diverse because he's a different race.
He's a
which
tall
I'm
white guy.
not. Yeah, like I don't,
Awkward? Is
I
that-
don't fit a lot of diverse classes, right? But when you stop looking at the body and the mind, which is what Mount Townsend talks about in this Hope Works talk, is he says you start seeing people spiritually for who they are, right? And like this quote that we really love is, we are spirits having a human experience instead of humans having a spiritual experience. Like, I've always been a spirit, you've always been a spirit, and because we've always been spirits, that's who we should view our employees as spirits, because that's who they will always be. They're not defined by their color, they're not defined by their job description, they're not defined by their performance review.
Yeah, people look at me as maybe that kid who peed his pants in the 3rd grade, right? I didn't. Trevor did. A kid named Trevor. He peed his pants in 3rd grade.
Trevor, we see you.
Yeah, we do. We do. But no, the thing is the hard thing about this is not only do people see me as that, but I start to see myself as that person. And that can lead to a lot of issues for me, because maybe I don't believe in myself. I don't grow the way I should because I'm held back by just this mind, right? Or my body. And he goes into a lot of detail about the difference between mind and body, and then compares it to being a spiritual being.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting. So if you get a chance, check it out, because some really great stuff there.
So, what are some of like self-defeating things that you do at work?
Yes.
Like, why do people tear themselves down as employees, and why as managers do we do that as well?
I think a lot of times I see myself sometimes as a bad employee. Maybe I waste time, or maybe I don't have great time management skills. So all of a sudden, I realize that as a person, as an imperfect person, I realize that I have maybe occasionally bad time management skills, and so that's how I see myself.
Yeah.
Or maybe I'm a bad husband, or maybe, and again, a lot of this is all internal in my mind, right? It's not so much as who I really am, but it's something that I see myself because I let my mind control.
Yeah, and when we let our mind control what we do at work, then we're not able to accomplish as much as we could if we use like our spiritual eyes, right? And I think that that's the whole point we want to make in this cultural disruption episode, is find out who people are spiritually. Now, that doesn't mean you put on your religion glasses or anything like that, because we all come from different beliefs. Some of us might not have any beliefs, and that's okay. But what we want to understand is not who we are as a body, because the body doesn't define us. I mean, we get characteristics from it, but like, we're spirits in a body, not a body in a spirit.
You never look at me and say, Blake can hike a mountain without getting too overwinded. But guess what? I can.
Boom. And then, like, we also, as you were mentioning about our thoughts, like, our thoughts don't control who we are as people, and our spirits. Our spirits determine, like, kind of what our thoughts are going to be. So as we focus on the root cause, it's just like you got a business issue, you probe into what the root cause of that is, and then you can solve the issue. We need to treat our employees the same way and viewing them as spiritual beings. And as we do, we will overcome a lot of challenge and obstacles that we might have as we're trying to performance manage them or deal with them in different issues.
And I would say one last thing that I want to add in here is, like, as you start to see people as spiritual beings, I would recommend also do the same thing for yourself. Start looking at yourself as a spiritual being and realize that you have a much greater purpose than just being the boss, right? You have the ability to change lives, just like your employees have the ability to change their life and change their your company and all these great things. Start looking at yourself too, because that's going to make an impact on how you see your employees.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm not Gerd the Nerd. I'm Jared Olson. Right? And you are Blake Beard.
I am not Tubby Tubbers.
The most beautiful man I've ever met.
You stop right now.
And as we try to fill those holes in our life and in our employment, the only way we can do that, according to Matt Townsend, is as we turn our eyes towards heaven and towards the deity that we believe in. And that is where we can fill those voids, not by our body and by our minds, but by the spiritual understanding. And that's how you can really effectively manage your team and accomplish more than you ever thought possible. View them through spiritual eyes.
Don't forget to subscribe.